I appreciate everybody joining. My name is Tom Kiley. I'm a sales engineer here with the engineering team at iBoss. And today, what I want to go over with everyone is really the idea of SASE and where that idea comes from and how iBoss approaches that specific uh, challenge, as well as the specific challenges that we can address using our containerized architecture as well. Uh, Sort of start us off here, the idea of SASE, the term coined by Gartner, is really the secure access service edge, or really connecting users from anywhere directly and securely to public and private applications wherever they may reside, right? And with that in mind, right, the transformation that networks have taken over the past really 10 years that was really expedited by COVID was users are moving away from working within the four walls, the confines of an office, and people are working from home, people are working remotely on the road from Starbucks, right? And network and security teams need to be able to dynamically change the way that they approach security and connectivity to address these new work situations so that really the network remains just as secure as if everybody was still sitting within the four walls of the office. So, start us off with a high overview on really what iBoss is and where we came from. So, iBoss was started in the early 2000s, and really we were in the gateway space, right? And we've built up our platform into what it is today over the past, 15 to 20 years. We now have over 230 patents and patents pending, all right, awards, and it's really due to not just how we're built, but the way that we deliver our service, right? And so you can see, within all of the main verticals, we're in the top three for each vertical, right? Fortune 3, so financial chip manufacturers, right? Oil and gas. And we're able to handle through our service over 100 billion connections a day, right? And so shifting, more towards that circle within the center of the slide, you can see through our platform, we're able to provide, not just connectivity features and simple security, right? We're able to provide cloud access security broker features, data loss prevention, IPS, firewall, proxy, network security, private access, connectivity, VPN replacement. The list goes on, right? And the idea is that we're not just a one-to-one replacement for any specific network feature or networking security feature, but iBoss and SASE as a whole is really a platform that provides broad security as well as connectivity to address the workforce of the future, right? And so, sort of moving down from this circle here to this one, the securely connect on any device, right? Like I mentioned at the beginning, what SASE really looks to address is that workforce of today and really tomorrow. So we want to provide the exact same security, right? Everything you see within this bubble to users anywhere they reside, anywhere that they're connecting to, connecting from, or working, right? And that moves us down to the next one here, right? So we want to make sure that we're able to provide the same experience and the same security to users, and at the same time, not interrupt their connectivity to the apps that they need to use every day, again, regardless of where they're sitting. Now, to sort of dig a little bit deeper into that and really highlight the transformation that I've been talking about, all right, if you look at this blue box here on the left, the company data center per se, as I mentioned, 10 years ago, everybody was sitting within those confines of the office, right? Everything was racked and stacked locally. You have your network security and your connectivity all in house, as well as a lot of those core business applications and data. So you didn't really need to worry about securing anything remotely or really the cloud in general. But as the years went by and things progressed, and especially with the past year and a half or 2 years of coronavirus that we've been experiencing, we've definitely seen a huge shift where users and employees are actually moving out of the office and working from anywhere. And the same thing has happened over the years with a lot of these core applications as well, right? Everything's moving out to the cloud. So now you have your remote users and your remote applications, and a lot of network security appliances within the data center that may not be accomplishing what they were 10 years ago. And really, that's where SASE and iBoss could come in. All right, so we're able to create really a unified platform that can secure both the physical networks as well as these remote users and broker access to any internal apps as well as external apps while providing that secure connectivity for users wherever they reside. All right, and to sort of double click on that a little bit and get under the hood, really where we sit as a secure access service edge solution and where SASE sits in general is really right in the middle of the networking and security teams, right? Because we really grab the best of both sides and deliver them as a unified service and platform for our customers. All right, so on the connectivity side, right, we're able to provide your VPN replacement, right, zero trust networking features. And then on the security side, right, we can do full scale firewall replacement, proxy replacement, CASB features, remote browser isolation. Again, the list goes on and on there. And to really see where iBoss sits within the network, we're essentially an extra layer between your users and your networks and the internet. So when you look at it from the bottom up here, right, and to sort of reiterate that that first slide, right, we're connecting any device and any user through any network, right, where they're on a hotspot or at Starbucks, at a branch office, at the headquarters, through the cloud, right? So as I mentioned, we're this layer in between your users' traffic and the entirety of the internet. And what we can do within this platform is, again, proxy, DLP, firewall, IPS reporting, private access VPN replacement, CASB features, malware detection, packet capture, visibility reporting, really the whole 9 yards within this unified platform. So really rolling in a lot of features into this unified management console, while at the same time not interrupting in any way the end user experience, as well as dropping any sort of security or functionality that customers or users had on legacy systems. And really, what allows us to deliver this so well is our containerized architecture, right? So we can provide essentially an isolated deployment for each of our customers within our cloud. So it's a shared fabric, but we use software concepts to actually split out each customer's traffic so nothing is mixed. Now, to get a little bit deeper into that as well, here we can see really what the iBoss containerized architecture looks like under the hood. So each customer, when connecting to the iBoss cloud, actually runs through their own private instances within our cloud. So here, we're not mixing any of our customers' traffic, right? We have dedicated resources for each of our customers, so there's no, fighting for capacity or larger customers stopping out other customers. But even deeper than that, right? When we're talking about, sharing storage space, right? Double clicking on that, we're talking about logging, reporting, as well as things like SSL keys for decryption. And now, let's take a step back before I sort of highlight the rest of the benefits here. When you look at the iBoss architecture, when compared with really the rest of the SASE space, what makes us unique is this containerized architecture. And the reason why it's important is that we want to make sure that from a security perspective and even a connectivity perspective, we're not mixing anything between any of our customers. And to flip that on its head, all right, if you were to install a firewall at the edge of your network and that firewall provider told you that they were going to run other customers' traffic through that edge firewall, that would never pass regulation or compliance. And at the end of the day, no network or security administrator would want that on their network. So when you look at the cloud, right, why would you want that in the cloud as well? So we're able to provide that private deployment with all the benefits of the cloud as well. So to get a little bit deeper as well into what we can offer with this containerized architecture, right? So again, you get that dedicated capacity, you get those dedicated checkout lanes for each of your users. But with that, as we have that dedicated space for each customer, all of our customers actually get static egress IPs to the internet through the iBoss Cloud Console. All right, so that allows us to do things like cloud application whitelisting and zero trust architecture using the cloud platform, just based on how we're built, how we're delivered. Right, and there's no other vendor within the space that can actually offer that sort of feature set. And really, what it enables us to do is provide a whole nother level of security for all of our customers, while again not interrupting or not uh, causing any uh, excuse me, causing any interruption for users wherever they sit. So you've probably heard me mention a little bit about VPN replacement through the iBoss Cloud platform as well. So here, this sort of shows the three steps that we take with a lot of our customers and what we see within the SASE space as legacy VPNs are being, um, you know, sunsetted. So all the way on the left, that's the full legacy approach, right? All of your users, when they're remote, either take a full or split tunnel approach to their traffic when sitting remotely or working remotely. Now, what's important to note about this is that the full tunnel is going to tax your users because you have to run all of your traffic back through your backbone before it goes out to the internet. And then again, on the way down, it's got to come back through that same route and out to your user. So you're introducing really a lot of latency into the user experience as well. They have to, every time they want to connect to the internet, spin up that VPN and wait for that connection to establish. And then again, on the flip side, if you're taking a split tunnel approach, you need to be wary of what's actually securing that traffic that's not flowing back through that VPN. And so, with that in mind, really that's where iBoss can come in here, or really SASE as a whole, right? So, what we can do with the split tunnel approach is we can integrate with really any VPN that a customer could be using, and then sit in the middle of that split tunnel traffic to provide all the same security that that user would receive as if they were full tunneling, but that traffic's going really direct to the internet through the iBoss cloud. So taking steps to improve that user experience and connectivity, while at the same time not disrupting any of the security features that they would have had over the full tunnel. Right, and as things progress from there, we can actually take a full replacement approach where we sunset the VPN entirely and utilize the iBoss private access system to provide access to those users, those remote users, to internal applications through the iBoss cloud platform. Now, another thing that iBoss is able to offer is actually a hardware solution. And now, this really is a sort of preference-based deployment that we'll run through with a lot of our customers. So when deploying the iBoss cloud, there really is no requirement for hardware, right? And we don't want to force that onto our customers, because when you get into the hardware discussion, right, you start looking at, 3 years down the road, do I need to upgrade these? Do I need to replace them? And we really want to do away with that and improve costs as well as management through the cloud. But at the end of the day, if it's either a preference or a requirement to have drop-in hardware replacement or hardware in general, we can, provide that to our customers, right? So with a hybrid approach, if you're deploying iBoss architecture locally within a network or a data center, that hardware is actually going to seamlessly integrate with your cloud deployment and effectively act as a point of presence for just your users. Again, our cloud gateways are just as secure as any gateway that you could have sitting within your four walls or your data center, right? And really the benefits of having that hardware on-prem, again, is you get to effectively own and manage your own point of presence within the iBoss cloud. But that iBoss appliance can broker connections for private access, as well as provide inline policy application for any traffic that's flowing in and out of your network. And of course, outside of a hybrid or all hardware based approach, as I mentioned at the beginning here, with a lot of our customers, we actually support full cloud deployments where we can run either GRE or IPsec tunnels from your data centers, from your network edge, to capture any and all traffic that needs to be passed up to the cloud, as well as to broker those private access connections when users are connecting back into private resources. And so, really, the idea here is that our deployment methods are flexible, right? We can work with hardware, with no hardware. We can take a hybrid infrastructure. We can work with your VPN. We can replace it. We're really able to play well with any both networking and security architecture and infrastructure that you currently have to better and provide a more unified security footprint there. And here, this is really to provide a high-level overview of what can be accomplished through the iBoss cloud platform here. So looking at the diagram on the right, and to sort of review from a few slides back, where iBoss sits is really in between the network and security teams, right? We're pulling really the best of features from both sides and delivering them in a unified platform to all of our customers. So, we're talking about zero trust, right? Routing features, traffic shaping, bandwidth shaping and optimization, DNS protection, caching, right? As well as things like remote browser isolation, secure web gateway features, DLP, firewall features, right? And the list goes on and on there. And again, what I do want to mention is we're not really trying to be a one-to-one replacement for any of these features, but we're trying to provide our customers with a platform that can help them with the digital transformation of the future, right? The way that we're built and the way that the iBoss platform is architected, and really taking a step back, the way that SASE is built as a whole, and the idea behind that is about that digital transformation. It's not about replacing an individual feature. It's about creating a unified platform to manage both networking and security that'll be ready to roll in whatever the features of the future are. And so with that, really that concludes the slides that I wanted to get through for the first few minutes here. So I do want to take a quick pause for a moment and wait to see if there are any questions that are going to come in here. All right, so it doesn't look like anything's coming in through the Q&A, which is totally fine. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to switch my screen share and go through a quick walkthrough of the iBoss platform itself, just so you can get an idea of what the platform looks like and get an idea for the ease of use and management and what can be accomplished through the service. So give me one moment here, I'll make that change. All right, so give that a second to load. Hopefully y'all can see my screen here. All right, so what you're looking at here, this is the iBoss Cloud Management Console, right? So when thinking about the concept of SASE and what we can do, right, when it comes to all features, right, whether it's visibility or policy application or connectivity, all of that's configured and managed from this console here. So to start with, highlighting what I mentioned, our containerized architecture, right? You're able to dig under the hood right here from the console, and you can see these containers, right? These gateways that are associated to each account, right? And you're able to see location information, what pops that they are a part of, as well as even dig deep into the diagnostics. We're able to open up each gateway individually and look at system information, proxy statistics, right? Even from the cloud interface, we can take a packet capture on demand right from the iBoss Cloud Console. So it's really easy to get the visibility and have the tools that you need to effectively manage your cloud deployment as if it was a hardware deployment within your data center, right? We're not taking away any of those features, any of that visibility, just because we're deployed within the cloud here. So back onto the homepage here, where I want to start on the platform discussion is really from the deployment side. So when we open up users, groups, and devices and the group management pane here within iBoss, uh, what we're able to do is actually create any number of groups within the console to be able to differentiate and assign policy levels to users and devices within your network. Right, so you can see I've assigned intuitive group names here for this test environment, but I've also created these alias names, right? And what iBoss is able to do is actually integrate with any IDP that a customer may be using, right? So if you're on Okta or Active Directory or Azure, doesn't matter. We can actually pull in information from any provider, and based on a user's security group membership, we can dynamically apply group-based policy within the iBoss platform to those users, right? So here from an authentication perspective, user authenticates against the iBoss platform. They're a part of the CISO group. They'll automatically be added to the executive policy without having to click anything or do any manual authentication, right? And what handles a lot of this interaction is actually the agent, or what we call the cloud connector here within the iBoss platform. So we can support really any platform that you see here, right? Windows, terminal servers, Mac OS, Linux, Chrome, iOS, Android, right? Really anything that you would put in front of a user or an employee. And as I mentioned, from the authentication perspective, the connector is really going to handle everything. So it's easily downloadable and distributable, right? You see it's MSI for Windows, a package for Mac, can be deployed via MDM, Active Directory security group policy, SCCM. Doesn't matter. It'll silently install wherever you deliver it. And then once it installs, it really has only a couple main responsibilities. The first, of course, is to register any login events to that device, right? That's where we grab that authentication information and pass it up to the cloud. The second thing it's going to do is actually install a certificate for man-in-the-middle SSL inspection. So again, there's no real hands-on management that needs to be done from the certificate side. It's actually all built in to the connector to the cloud when you deploy. So it is manageable within the interface, but when it comes to ease of use and ease of deployment, it's not something that you need to initially configure or have ready when you're getting ready to deploy iBoss. And then the last and maybe most obvious responsibility that the connector has is it's going to be redirecting that traffic to the iBoss cloud, right? So it's going to create that proxy tunnel from the endpoint to the iBoss node cluster, where it will forward traffic, and then policy will be applied, of course, and then iBoss will then forward that traffic out to the internet. So it's a high level overview of what the agents can do. Of course, that's not the only connectivity method that we offer. Right, as I mentioned within our presentation, we're able to actually support GRE or IPsec tunnels here. And we give you a lot of visibility within the platform as well. Here within the tunnels dashboard, we can actually open up and see what gateways have tunnels running to them. All right, we can open it up and we can see actual traffic statistics for up, down, right, whether the tunnel's active. And even from the console here, we can open up a terminal and we can ping hosts, right? And just as a example here, we can use google.com, right? And then we'll wait for that to respond. We can actually see all this information, right? We're able to test connectivity as well. So a lot of visibility and really easy to get these tunnels configured, right? Outside of that, of course, we can support WCCP when we're talking about deploying hardware. And then we have a DNS security option as well. So, for those that are familiar with DNS security options, again, it's a little bit more lightweight, but where you want to just have a high level filter and defense security solution in place, this will do the job. So from the deployment side, that's really the high level. Moving forward towards a little bit more of the policy application area. So here when we jump into web security, the first thing that I want to make sure you notice is the group drop down here. So everywhere that we can apply policy within the platform, we're actually able to apply that on a per user, per group method. And to start here, within the web security pane, we're in the web security policies. All right, and I'm going to start by going over a lot of the proxy functionality, right, the web filtering. And this first pane is going to be the web and SSL categories, where we have over 70 different categories to choose from when it comes to policy application. All right, and to go from left to right through each one of these symbols, for each category, we have the ability to, of course, allow the traffic. We can also block it. The airplane symbol here is going to be a stealth mode. What you can do is use this to actively monitor specific categories. Alternatively, it can be used to stage policy. This will highlight traffic within the log without actually blocking it. So if you want to, mark all of your blocks as stealth mode when you're first deploying, you can run that for a few days, review the log, make sure there'll be no interruptions, and then switch everything over to block. The hand here, that's going to be your soft override or coaching page. What this will allow you to do is present users with a block page that they can click through, right? And the messaging that you put on the block page is configurable. So, you're able to let users know, hey, this might not be where you want to be going, or this is a potentially malicious site, etc. But again, you still leave that option in the user's hands, whether or not they want to continue forward. The eye here, clicking on the eye will turn off SSL inspection for a specific category, right? So when we get into the conversation about maybe health information or finance information, right, you're able to, at one click, mark those entire categories of the internet as do not decrypt. And again, outside of this, we do have deeper controls over what we will or won't decrypt. And I can show you where those lists are a little bit later on here. To move over to these last two options, these are a little bit more administrative. So the way administration works within the iBoss platform is there's one cloud account owner, and they're able to create delegated administrators and give them responsibilities within the platform. What that cloud account administrator or cloud account owner can do is actually lock down these specific category policies such that any administrator that they add to the platform won't be able to change it. And alternatively, they can actually lock down a category policy such that nothing can be added to the allow list or block list that will change the functionality for the specific category, right? So putting some controls in the hands of the main administrator to ensure that nobody that they add in is going to be stomping on or changing any policies that are need to have whether it be compliance or security. And so outside of just this category-based allowing and blocking, right, we have a lot more to offer when it comes to your proxy and filtering is concerned. All right, so starting here, evasive protocols. Right here, we can provide a little bit of visibility and control into maybe more of the less friendly VPNs here. And on the flip side as well, and some standard protocols that are used commonly, we're actually able to generate blocks for those just on a click of a toggle here. So really easy to configure. And again, everything I'm going to walk through is configurable on a per group basis. Browser and operating system settings here. What we're able to do is actually manage what browsers and what operating systems are permitted to browse the internet on your network. All right, so here under browser management, we can actually select specific browsers to block. Alternatively, we can create this as an allow only, or if you're supporting maybe some more legacy browsers within your network, whenever we detect that a user is using one of those legacy browsers, we can move those users to a more secure group within the platform to ensure that they have additional policy layered on. Of course, to make sure that with that legacy browser, they're not going to get compromised. And then again, with operating systems, a little bit of the same approach here. So we're able to block, create an allow only list, or actually move users into specific groups based on what operating system that they're using when browsing the internet on the network here. Moving down, we have the allow list and the block list capabilities as well. So, these are really easy to use here. All you need to do is add in the URL and hit enter. You're good to go. One tool that we do provide that a lot of our customers find very helpful is the scrape tool. And what it's going to do is automatically scan sites for dependencies, subdomains, CDNs, right? We can see for msnbc.com, this is what came up. We can actually, in bulk, add all of these to the allow list right from this tool. So when it comes to poking holes through that proxy and filtering policy, it can save you a lot of time when you want to make sure that you're comprehensively allowing sites through the platform. Then on the block list side, it's the same thing. We have the ability to add in these URLs manually, and then you can scrape URLs as well if you want to be comprehensively adding things to the block list. Moving down here to the keyword filtering. All right, what we can do here is actually filter and block on specific keyword searches on the internet. Now, here in the platform, you can actually build out your own keyword list here. Add word, easy to add in. We can also import lists if there's one that you're currently supporting on a current solution, or alternatively, if you find one, on the internet that you'd want to support on your network as well. And then outside of that, we do have pre-configured keyword lists that you can enable within the platform if it's something that you want to turn on as a high-level filter. Here within the port blocking, what we can do is actually block specific ports or port ranges through the cloud. You can see there's only 5 entries here. This is more of a high-level tool. There's a different area within the platform where we can get a little bit deeper into allowing or blocking specific ports for users. But when it comes to those high-level settings, right, you want to block FTP and SSH. Right, we can create a 21 to 22 port range. And enable this, and that's applied to all of our users within the control group. So really easy to create and deploy these rules within the iBoss console here. Then these last few options that we have here, content MIME types, file extensions, domain extensions, it's really simple lists that you're able to create entries within that'll block either the download or users browsing to specific content or domains. We'll jump into the file extension blocking here. We can see for the control group, if we want to block the download of executables, ISO files, and PDFs, very easy to do. And again, super easy to add to these lists here. No zip files, very easy to expand upon that. Domain extensions, very similar. All right, so here we do have the option to create a block or allow only list here if you want to create a lockdown policy for your network. But of course, right, Chinese domains, Russian domains, .io domain, very simple. It's going to block entire corners of the internet off for users within the group that you specify. Then down here in sleep schedule, what we can do is actually effectively turn off the internet on specific devices or for a specific group of your users, each day or each week during specific times. So, I mean, if you want to make sure that nobody's using the internet during specific hours, maybe it's updating time or whatever it may be, that's all configurable here within the iBoss platform as well. So to stick with a little bit more of the proxy features and the filtering side of things, I'll jump into our cloud access security broker features here as well. So what we're able to do actually within our CASB is get visibility into applications and categories of applications that are being used within the network. We can also break that app down by user and by hits as well. And then outside of a visibility standpoint, we can actually take control and actions and apply policy based on specific applications as well, right? So you see we can apply Azure and O365 tenant restrictions. So if you want to make sure that users are only able to log into the company domain or a list of company domains, we can do that and block users from logging in with personal or other domain accounts. Right, same thing for Slack. And we can block Spotify. And then when it comes to your standard social media sites, rather than taking an allow all or block all approach, we're able to layer on specific controls over what users are able to do on those sites. All right, so if we want to make Pinterest and Facebook read only, we can do that right by hitting all the toggles here. And what's important to note is that the policies within iBoss are applied in layers, really. So within our web security portion here, we can actually block all of these social media sites and then allow specific, Twitter or Pinterest or Facebook sites on the allow list that'll poke holes through that policy. And then whatever policies we apply here will be layered on top of that. So effectively for the users in that scenario, they'll have all of social media blocked, save a couple Twitter and Facebook sites. And on those sites, right, they're not able to, tweet or direct message or play games or a friend or anything like that. So you're able to really take a granular approach when it comes to social media through iBoss. Again, sort of branching off from that allow all or block all strategy. And then down here at the bottom, we're able to do the same thing for Google. We can turn off specific Google functions just on the click of a button here. And then down here at the bottom, we can enforce tenant restrictions on the Google side as well. So here, I have a bogus domain in, and effectively that's blocking all users from using really any Gmail domain. So if you want to block that on your network, you can. Otherwise, again, you can put in specific domains that you want users to use those tools on. So moving forward within the cloud access security broker side here, the GeoIP blocking, this is really a simple but powerful tool, and that can act as an extra layer of security for your network, right? Remember, iBoss is sitting in between your users and your networks and the entirety of the internet, right? So if we want to be blocking off certain corners of the internet by domain or by geolocation, right, we can do that. And here within our GeoIP tool, we can block both TCP connections as well as file uploads to specific geolocations. So here I have China and Russia blocked, just as a simple example. But what I've seen some of our customers do as well is actually take a allow only the United States approach as well. So it's really configurable how you want to approach these rules and create these custom allow and blocks based on geo. Moving forward here, our file uploads. So this is, again, another simple but powerful tool. What we're able to do is actually prevent generic file uploads across the entire internet right from the platform here. So again, I'm gonna be drilling it in, but iBoss sits in between, right, all of your users and all of your connections in the internet. So we have visibility into what each user is doing right? Even what specific IoT devices are doing on a physical network. So if you don't want anybody to upload anything, we can hit this toggle. Then you can utilize other policies to actually poke holes through that, right? If you need a specific group to be able to upload to a specific site, we can configure that. While at the same time maintaining this zero trust approach when it comes to uploads. Right, you can see we have some simple controls over some of the more common file sharing apps as well. Here within the YouTube Manager, what we're able to do is enforce a safe search for YouTube. And it's a simple feature that really just blocks out explicit content. That's not something that you want to worry about. And then down here at the bottom, we can strip out comments. We can block HD video playback. If you're worried about bandwidth on premise. And then what we can do, which is a neat feature, is YouTube channel redirect. So, if a customer has their own YouTube channel, what we can do is whenever a user on their network accesses YouTube, it'll actually drop them directly on that company's YouTube channel rather than on the YouTube homepage, which is pretty neat. And the last thing that we have here within the Cloud Access Security Broker is the Microsoft CAS feature. So what we can do is actually integrate with a current Microsoft CAS subscription to integrate both the rules and the coverage that iBoss and MCAS has to create a unified front for both policy application as well as visibility. So we'll be able to pull in everything into the iBoss console as well as apply it to all iBoss scope devices. So there is one other thing that I do want to show within the Cloud Access Security Broker. I did save it for last. It's really one of the only features that we have that takes into account data at rest. So with iBoss handling a lot of that north-south communication, that's our primary focus. But what we're able to do as well with our API CASB is actually link in to a cloud database where you may be storing files and data, and go through and actually scan each individual file to tell you who owns it, right? Is it malicious? When was it created? When was it last updated? Who made the most recent changes? On top of that, we can scan each file for DLP hits. So you can get a view of each file within your cloud data center and know if you're hosting anything that's malicious, and actually be able to tag specific files for DLP all through the iBoss Cloud platform here as well. So that's really the high level on majority of our filtering features. What I want to jump into next, if there aren't any questions, is going to be the malware defense side of things. So here, our malware defense feature set really resides within the intrusion prevention, malware defense, and sandboxing tabs here. So here, clicking into intrusion prevention, what we're able to do is actually enable a snort-based IDS or IPS, again, configurable solution that runs inline for all of your users' traffic. And we're able to dig in under the hood here, and we can take a look at all of these rules. They're sorted out by category, right? And again, like I mentioned, it's snort-based. So we pull in the rules for you from both Cisco Talos as well as emerging threats from Proofpoint. But outside of that, if you want to create your own rules, if you want to edit the rules, you're absolutely able to do that. What's really nice about the iBoss platform is that a lot of the features that we have available are easily configurable, right? A lot of things are just toggle-based. But at the end of the day, if you do want to double click on anything, or if you do want to really get under the hood, we give you the ability to take the reins and really configure things exactly the way that you want them to be, right? And to touch on those rule subscriptions that I mentioned, those are managed here, right? You can determine when we want to check for updates. And one thing to note on these as well is that this is entirely managed by iBoss. It's not something that any of our customers have to worry about. It comes baked into the platform. So moving forward here onto our malware defense offering. So here we have two engines that we can enable. First is the streaming malware and reputation defense. And then the second is the advanced malware analysis defense. What the streaming malware and reputation defense engine is going to do is that's what's actually going to be actively monitoring users as they browse, making sure that they're not clicking on any malicious links or navigating to sites that are botnets or by any means known to be malicious. What the advanced malware analysis defense is going to be doing, this is what's going to actually unpack and open up those files and scan for known signatures, as well as sandbox those files and understand exactly what they're doing and whether or not their behaviors can be considered malicious. So we have these two engines, and then to layer on top of that as well, we can integrate with the Google Safe browsing database as well. So if you're browsing through Chrome, like I am right now, you're under that Google protection. But anybody that's using Firefox or Edge or any other third-party browser, you can load in the Google database to apply that across the entire network. So it's a simple thing to do, but it applies an extra layer of security for all your users. And the nice part about this is that the API key is free too, so very easy to set up. Last thing that we can do here within the malware protection is actually heuristic-based high-risk browsing protection. So what we can do here is actually apply risk scores to URLs based on URL content. So if you want to be, blocking users on a specific medium risk score or high risk score, we can do that. Again, all of that that engine is built on the iBoss side. So it's, as I mentioned, content of the URL is what determines the score. So for example, a .ru domain extension will warrant a high score, whereas a .com would warrant a low score. And if you want to take this sort of approach, it is a broad strokes approach, but it can tend to be a little bit more secure when you're talking about locking down users in a more lockdown environment. The last thing I want to go through here is the malware sandboxing. So, as I've mentioned a few times, iBoss is sitting in between your networks, your users, and the internet, right? So we have visibility into all of that north-south traffic. But at the end of the day, one of the most common forms of cyber attack, right, is leaving USB sticks in a company parking lot. It's a curiosity killed the cat situation. So an employee is going to grab one of those, wonder whose it is, what's on it, plug it into their computer, and then there you've got a virus installed, right? So as users do this, right, if you want to understand what a suspicious file is or where a file came from, or you find something on the network that you've never seen before, you can actually upload it here into our engine, and we will treat it as if a user actually uploaded it or downloaded it on the internet, run it through all the same engines, and actually give you the full scale report on that file after the fact, right? So this is an example scan that I did on our Windows MSI, right? So we can see behavioral analysis. It's a Windows installer. But in the event where you actually ran this on something that was malicious, right, you would get a report from whatever engines marked it as a virus, as well as specific information on what viruses were found, as well as what other file names it could be hiding as on the network. So a lot of visibility right here from the scan. And then, of course, you can take this and utilize a endpoint-based solution to quarantine devices or cleanse specific files. So from the malware defense side of things, that's really the high level. Again, it is, when configuring through the iBoss platform, it is very simple to look at, but it's very powerful at the end of the day. You can see within this file scan, right, we're running over 60 different engines and feeds against all the files, right? This is the same thing that's going to run against anything that a user uploads or downloads over the wire. So easy to set up, but a lot of visibility and really a lot of power behind the platform itself here. So the next thing I want to get into here is the data loss prevention tool. So here what we're able to do is actually open up files and scan files in somewhat of the same way that we do with the malware defense engine. But here we're going to actually be looking for signatures, whether they be credit card numbers, PII, email addresses, and it's fully configurable from the end user side. Right, we can create broad strokes rules that will target email addresses Or we can actually get into specific complex rules that will do things like block specific content uploads to specific sites for specific groups, right? And sort of look at this rule that I've created. The granularity that we enable through the platform allows us to apply, again, a rule to a domain and a specific user, this group one, this control group. For specific content, right here, we're matching on driver's licenses, which if I can get the scroll wheel to work correctly, which we can see here under these custom search patterns that have been created. We're including all search criteria. And unchecked it there. And we can actually determine how we want to handle specific traffic as well. So it's not just going to be your allow or block, right? We can actually block with a blank page if you don't want to be providing any information to the user. Or again, if you want to be poking holes through specific DLP policies, or circling back to the file upload example that I mentioned before, if you want to be blocking all file uploads, but allowing uploads for specific groups or specific destinations, right? We can bypass that through all policies as well. So a lot of configuration and visibility is available through the platform here as well. So that's really the high level on the policy that we can apply as well. I just want to show you a little bit about where we can provision exceptions for users and create one-off or user or group-based policies that are really outside of the scope of these high-level groups that we have within iBoss. So where I want to start is actually back here with the connectors. So here in agent policies, what we're able to do is actually change the behavior of each connector on a per group or per user basis. All right, so we have visibility and access to change everything about what this connector is going to be doing, right? So we can change and require a password for uninstall here, right? We have a Windows desktop app that's enabled for this specific policy. We're able to enforce SAML, right? We can check for install specific certificates, right? We can change what ports we're actually going to be forwarding across the proxy tunnel. And then what we're also able to enable is device posture checks. So we can check for, an enabled firewall, disk encryption, device settings, anti-malware settings. And if a company is doing any sort of certificate-based authentication, we can support a certificate check as well to ensure that if a end user or an endpoint doesn't have a specific certificate installed, we actually reject that registration or even move to a different, more lockdown group. So from the endpoint side, we're actually able to control a lot about what the connector is doing, as well as how that connector is actually going to handle the authentication process. Right. Now, moving back over towards the policy side, here within web security, we have the policy layers option. And this is where we're actually able to create specific exceptions that we can apply to users based on allow list, block list, or categories. So let's look at an example of these. All right, what we're able to do is actually layer on policy changes on top of what users already have from their group-based policy. So this blue X that we see on each category, this means we're not going to change their current group policy. But if we want to, add on additional restrictions, or on the flip side, right, open up specific content, we can do that and then apply it here based on username, based on security group within an IDP, or even based on specific geos, right? If you have employees that are in a specific country that need different privileges than employees in another country, right? That's entirely configurable right here through the platform. Then, of course, down at the bottom, you can apply it just based on security group within iBoss as well. The last thing we can do for these is actually put them on a schedule. So if you want to, create an advanced schedule for a specific policy change, you can do that. And again, this is applied per user, per group, so you can create really granular exceptions. And the last thing on the exception side is here, the proxy rules. So what we're able to do is actually intercept traffic from specific users to specific destinations and change how we're going to handle that traffic or how we want to direct that request. So this example that I have here, this is just going to be blocking remote desktop access. So as I mentioned, previously when we went through the ports, this is a simple implementation of just blocking port ranges. We can actually get a lot more drilled down here. Looking at this, right, what we're able to do is actually match on port range here. So that value is going to be 3389 to block that remote desktop. And then we're able to just simply block that request. But as I mentioned, as we intercept this traffic based on really any requirement, right? It doesn't have to be port. We can do it based on group, based on port and group. We can look at headers. We can look at responses, right? We're able to change really everything or anything about that request, right? So we can redirect to RBI for specific requests, right? We can match on category. We can say, okay, if this is suspicious or whatever it might be, redirect to RBI, right? We can actually add specific headers or remove headers if we want to manually enforce tenant restrictions for something that might not be supported within the iBoss platform yet. I mean, the options that you have here are really extensive. So that's just a high level on exceptions as well. I mean, I don't have time to really show everything because I know we're going to be taking a little bit of a break here in a few minutes. But the last thing that I want to show you is, again, as I mentioned, the block page that you deliver to users is entirely customizable. So this is the default with the iBoss branding, but you're actually able to change really everything about the block page, right? You can change the colors, you can change the text, you can enable or disable this request and exception dialog for specific users, specific groups. And then again, based on what kind of block the user is seeing, you're able to deliver a different message. It doesn't have to be just this one block page that you configure within the platform. So I know we're sort of running up against the time on this first session here. So I do want to pause for the last few minutes and make sure that if anybody has any questions or anybody wants me to dig into anything a little bit deeper within the iBoss platform or within SASE or the concept, I can get answers for everyone. So please, if you have anything, throw it in the chat or throw it in the Q&A here. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time here. I didn't see any questions come in, but we are going to take a quick 30-minute or so break here, and then we'll be back at it at 11:30 Eastern to 12:30 Eastern for another presentation here. So again, appreciate everyone. Thank you for coming out, and we'll talk to you in a little bit. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I know it looks like some folks stuck around from session one, but I do see a lot of new faces here for session two. So I am going to go through the overview here again, just so that everybody has the fundamental understanding of both SASE and how iBoss approaches our SASE solution. and then we'll jump back into the platform again. And within the platform, I do plan to go a little bit deeper in this time. I'm going to save a little bit more time for the platform walkthrough as well. Awesome. So as we go through, please, if you have any questions or if there's anything that you want me to dig a little bit deeper into, please go ahead and post something in the chat or post something in the Q&A. And I'm happy to stop during the presentation and make sure that you get the information that you need. So before we get started here, just a quick introduction on myself. My name is Tom Kiley. I'm a sales engineer. I've been here with the iBoss team for about 2 years. I've been able to watch the company grow really from a small sales team of a handful of folks up to the enterprise sales team of almost 100 or maybe over that number that we have today, which is awesome. And through that process, I've been able to see the company, the product, as well as the space grow with respect to SASE. So happy to be here, and also happy to answer any questions that you guys have about iBoss or about the SASE concepts as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I know you guys are all here to learn about iBoss and SASE and how iBoss enables digital transformation through our secure access service edge product, right? And to start with that understanding, right, we need to first understand, where SASE is coming from and what the idea is there, right? So SASE, or Secure Access Service Edge, is a term coined by Gartner, which really the idea behind it is connecting users from anywhere directly to public and private applications through the cloud. Now, the idea there is actually to provide a platform. It's not just a single feature. It's a service delivered in the cloud that can be distributed to users anywhere that they sit, right? And looking back 10 years and sort of following the transformation of networks from the 2000s up until now, right? We've gone from all users sitting inside of corporate networks doing all of their work from the office, right, to users working from anywhere, applications being hosted anywhere. And security needs to be able to keep up and follow with those changes. And that's really where SASE comes in, as we provide, again, that unified platform to both connect and secure users anywhere that they sit and anywhere that they're trying to connect to the internet. So to start, a little overview on iBoss. So, we were started in the early 2000s. We were in the gateway market. And really, we transitioned and evolved our solution to be cloud native and have built it up into the SASE solution that it is today from there. We're built on over 230 patents and patents pending within the platform. And, with that solution that we built, right, we're securing one or all of the top 3 customers in each major vertical. And with that, of course, there comes a lot of traffic, and we're able to really scale and handle that. We're handling over 150 billion transactions a day, over 4 billion of those being threats that we actively manage through the platform, right? And really one of the key pieces about being cloud native is that we're able to scale and handle any solution, any network, any amount of bandwidth. So very versatile. Right. And again, sort of throwing out the concept of racking and stacking hardware, renewing it, expanding it, and getting rid of that whole headache. Right. But I digress. Right. If we look at the diagram here in the center, starting here with this comprehensive security bubble. Right. Like I mentioned at the beginning, what SASE is looking to deliver and what iBoss delivers isn't just a single feature replacement or single service. It is a suite of services delivered as a platform, right? So within the cloud, we're able to provide CASB features, DLP, IPS, firewall, proxy, network security, private access, VPN replacement, remote browser isolation. The list goes on, right? And we're able to actually take those features and extend them to both physical networks as well as users wherever they sit, regardless of what device they're connecting to, right? And through this service, we're then able to broker connections for those users to any cloud provider, any cloud application, as well as any internal applications, right? So really rolling a lot of both networking and security features into the platform to create a unified front, a unified edge for not just the four walls of your office, but each and every user. And to really understand, like I mentioned earlier, that transformation of networks from the early 2000s to now, right? The original setting, 10, 15 years ago, as I mentioned, everybody's sitting in the office, right? Everything runs through the devices that you have in line, right? All applications are hosted internally. But of course, over the past few years and the COVID situation definitely expedited this for a lot of different companies. We're seeing not just users are going remote, but business and applications and data are all being housed within the cloud as well. And so, these hefty network security stacks that are sitting in data centers, sitting in offices around the world, aren't really accomplishing what they were meant to accomplish from the beginning. Right, with users being remote, now we have to support VPNs back through this infrastructure, and then you get into sort of the conversation of, do we full tunnel, do we split tunnel? And if you're split tunneling, that traffic might be unmanaged or unprotected. Or if you're full tunneling, you can be introducing latency into users' connections, right? And at the end of the day, that latency, that time to connect and troubleshoot issues, can be converted into a dollar value of productivity lost. And the idea of iBoss and SASE and what we're trying to do, again, is to create that unified front for both your offices as well as your users, so that we can do away with, not just your traditional network security appliances, but the VPN connections as well, right? So we want to maintain all the same security features that you have, while at the same time making it a whole lot easier for you to manage the security and for your users to connect to the internet and the applications that they need to get to today. And so from the 1,000-foot view I mentioned a little bit before, right? iBoss and SASE as a whole really sits between your network and your security teams. And we're taking, the critical and the best features from each side and rolling them into one unified service for both management as well as connectivity for your end users. And now to sort of double click on this and peel back a layer to see exactly where iBoss fits within each and every network that we deploy to, it sort of circles back to that first slide where we're talking about securely connecting users and devices through any network to any application, internal or external, right? So if we look at the bottom, right, we can connect any device, that being desktop, laptop, tablet, server, IoT devices that are on a network, through really any network, right? If you're on a mobile hotspot, if you're on the JetBlue Wi-Fi, right? Branch office, headquarters, home office, it doesn't matter. The first stop for all of your traffic, regardless of where it originates from, is going to be the iBoss cloud. Excuse me. And that's where we're able to really apply that suite of features in line to all of your traffic, right? So this platform, these features are going to apply exactly the same to all of your users, to all of your networks, as if it was managed internally, right? As if that user was sitting at their desk in the office. So you don't need to worry about, managing, home office and VPN connections, or remoting in and managing specific firewall or proxy rules at a specific office. We create the managed, cloud-based platform to handle all of that. And at the same time, right, we're able to extend that security to users wherever they go, home offices, specific devices, it doesn't matter. And when you look at all of these features that we can provide, right, I mean, a lot of these things traditionally would reside on multiple different layers or multiple different applications, appliances within a traditional network stack. Right, but what we're able to do within the iBoss SASE platform is both deliver all of those features, but we can actually run all of these policy engines concurrently. So that traffic hits the cloud, we fully decrypt, We duplicate and run all of our engines concurrently to speed up the policy application process. And then at the end, we either apply policy and block, or re-encrypt and then send out to the internet, right? And what allows us to really streamline this process and deliver this to our customers is this containerized architecture, right? So what really sets us apart from the rest of the SASE and cloud-based space is that our architecture really allows for private deployments within our cloud for each and every one of our customers. So when it comes to horizontal scaling, when it comes to storage capacity, you don't have to worry about sharing with other customers or connecting to a shared point of presence. We're able to effectively extend your network into our cloud, and you get full management, full control, and full ownership of your deployment on our cloud fabric. And now to dig deeper into that, right? If you look here on the left, this is a high-level view of what the iBoss architecture looks like under the hood, right? So as I mentioned, each one of our customers gets their own specific deployment within our cloud fabric, right? So it's the same hardware in our POPs, but we use software concepts and containerization to actually separate out all data between our customers. So you don't have to worry about sharing any sort of logging or retention or capacity for applying policy. And you don't have to worry about sharing SSL keys, sharing even IP egress space, right? Through the iBoss platform, each of our customers gets their own static egress space through our cloud. So really, there's a lot of functionality and a lot of architecture that can be built and deployed simply based on the way that iBoss is architected and deployed, right? And when we double click on this a little bit deeper, right, what we can do for each customer is not just provide that dedicated IP address, right? But we're able to dig deep and actually provide visibility into every area of this connection here. So if you want to take a packet capture at the cloud edge, we can do that, right, on demand. Whereas with other solutions in the marketplace, you're going to have to call a help desk or put in a support ticket because they're mixing their traffic at the edge, right? And so, when you talk about this concept from a high level, the way that we built our cloud is really built on security and privacy from the start. So sharing infrastructure and sharing space isn't something that's really foreign when we're talking about cloud applications. However, if we flip that on its head and start talking about on-premise applications, it gets a little bit different. So if you were to buy a firewall, that firewall provider said, great, we're going to deploy this for you, but we're going to be running, every other customer's traffic through it as well in the area. You wouldn't want that in your data center, right? It wouldn't be compliant with really any regulation, right? And it would just open up a whole can of worms when it comes to, pulling logs and management, etc. So with that in mind, if you wouldn't do it with something you deploy on premise, why would you do it with something you're going to deploy in the cloud? So really, with that sort of school of thought, we built our cloud on this sort of infrastructure. Now, moving forward, what we're actually able to enable through the iBoss cloud isn't just feature parity with your firewalls and your proxies and your DLP engines, but we can actually enable a VPN replacement as well called private access, right? And what we can do is we can actually actively integrate with any VPN that a customer could be using today and work towards fully replacing that and running through that traffic or running that traffic through the iBoss cloud. So really the steps that we see with our customers going from left to right here is the legacy approach, right? Where that customer is leveraging the VPN either in full tunnel or in split tunnel mode, right? And as I mentioned previously in the PowerPoint here, when you're running full tunnel, right, you're going to be taxing your users a little bit because they're going to be getting some amount of latency when establishing that connection and then sending all their traffic back through the data center to go out to the internet, and then from the internet back down through the data center back to that endpoint. Alternatively, when we're talking about split tunneling, of course, that traffic that goes back to internal applications is secured, but anything that you split out may not be as secure as it was if it went through that tunnel. So what we can do for that first step of VPN replacement is we can help support customers split tunnel such that only traffic that is destined for internal resources traverses this VPN. And then iBoss can sit in between each user, each endpoint, and the internet for that split tunnel traffic, right? Effectively making it a little bit easier for users to connect to the internet, and then improving that latency that was previously introduced by the VPN as well. And then, the last step, this future step that we see with a lot of our customers, is actually fully sunsetting that VPN, right? Through the iBoss private access tool, we're able to utilize the iBoss cloud platform to broker connections to internal applications almost in the same way as a VPN would. But to say that the iBoss private access is a direct VPN replacement wouldn't exactly be right, because the way that private access works is more along the lines of a microsegmentation tool, which at the end of the day provides all the same features as a VPN, but it's going to give you more security as well as more visibility into what your users are accessing. So rather than just dropping users on the network as a traditional VPN does, through the iBoss private access, as I mentioned, we broker connection to those specific applications, right? We're no longer just putting the user on the network and letting them roam. Through iBoss, we can create lists of subnets or even specific applications that reside internally within your network, and then provide access to specific users that need it through the cloud. So effectively, really cutting down on that attack surface that's available in the event that, for any reason, a VPN would be exposed or compromised. So continuing on, some of the features that we can provide, especially around ease of deployment and ease of use. So to start, by no means does iBoss require any hardware to be deployed as a part of our implementation, right? So with that in mind, there are requirements and even preference from some of our customers to have physical appliances on premise, which is totally fine, and we can support that, right? So again, to follow sort of those transformation sort of steps that we have for the VPN, we have that for on-premise devices as well, right? So all the way here on the left, this is where we have our current or legacy, where everything is running through that current network stack. And what we're able to do is we can actually provide drop-in replacement hardware that can sit at this edge and provide all the same functionalities that a customer would need. And then the next step from there is to actually deploy it in a hybrid model where the user or the customer has a on-prem appliance that's actually linked with the cloud. And really the benefits there are that on-prem appliance is going to be able to handle traffic inline from all users that are on that network or that are connected to that data center. But this will also act as a point of presence to all of your users that are in the area. So if connecting to this specific appliance that you're housing is faster than the nearest POP in iBoss, users will actually connect through this to get out to the internet rather than going to the closest POP. Right, and again, it's all private. It's only going to be your users that are using this as a POP, not any other iBoss customers. So we maintain that privacy while effectively extending our cloud into your data center. And what's important to note about this as well is that when it comes to management of the appliance and the cloud, it's all linked and policy is duplicated across this appliance as well, as if it was housed in the cloud. So it's very easy to manage. It's all still done from the cloud console that I'll show you a little bit later. And you don't need to worry about remoting in or really hands-on managing this physical appliance. And then of course the future, and really this is our most popular deployment method, and what we support with a lot of our customers is a full cloud deployment. So no hardware required. From the enterprise network or from your data center, we can support VPN tunnels, right? IPsec from edge to cloud to capture any and all data that needs to go outbound, as well as broker connections that need to go inbound. And then for the remote users, we can support an agent-based deployment that will redirect all traffic from each user to the iBoss edge as if they had a full network security stack following them everywhere that they go. So this slide I have here at the end is really just to show a high-level overview of what we're able to accomplish as a SASE platform, right? And to reiterate, again, you see it up here at the top, as a SASE provider, SASE really sits in between the network and security side, and we're able to provide features really from both sides of the fence there. And really, what I want to mention and reiterate is that what we're doing with iBoss and with SASE in general isn't just to provide a one-to-one, VPN replacement or firewall replacement. What we want to do is provide our customers with a unified security and connectivity edge that can prepare them for the network and security challenges of tomorrow, right? It really ties in with the idea of that digital transformation. And the way that SASE and the way that iBoss is built is that we can provide those one-to-one feature replacements, but looking, 1, 3, 5 years ahead, our platform is built to be able to take in and deploy almost any security functionality or any networking functionality that's on the market today. So as the next biggest thing comes out, rather than customers having to go out and buy the next appliance or purchase the next feature from a vendor, it can all be delivered through this unified platform, creating an easy and really unified edge for security and networking. And so that's all I had for the slides here. I do want to take a quick pause just to make sure that nobody has any questions or there isn't anything that anybody wants me to dig into a little bit deeper. So I'll pause for a minute or two. Feel free to drop anything in the chat or the Q&A section. And from here, once we get through any questions that are asked, I'll switch my share. We'll go through the iBoss platform. We can take a look at what we're able to configure there, as well as what managing the platform looks like. All right, so it looks like the Q&A and chat sections are clear. So I'll go ahead and move on to the platform demo here. So again, as I'm moving through, if there's anything you want me to double click on or dig a little bit deeper into, or if you have any questions, feel free to drop anything in the chat or the Q&A sections, and I'm happy to take a pause and get you the answer that you need here. So just to start us off here, what we're looking at is the iBoss Cloud Management Console, right? This is your unified platform for everything that needs to be done within the iBoss console. So we're talking about logging, reporting, management of SSL and encryption, deployment, policy management. It's all housed within this platform under one login. So from accessibility, it's really easy. And you'll notice as I go through that the administration of the platform is very simple as well. A lot of what we have is toggle based and very easy to implement. However, almost every step along the way allows for the ability to really dig under the hood and really configure features to be as granular as you need them to be. So to start us off here, on the deployment side, here under users, groups, and devices and group management, what we're able to do is define a number of groups, right, up to 1,000 that we'd like to use to, put users in to give them different privileges within the network. So one thing that I want to point out here is under the alias names. What we can do is actually tie in with any IDP that a company may be supporting to automatically authenticate users into the correct group once they turn on their computers, right? Once they connect into iBoss. So from the end user perspective, the authentication process is actually very simple. The connector will tie in to the platform level authentication, right? So if they're authenticating against AD or Azure, we'll be able to capture this information automatically and then put the user automatically in the correct group. So entirely transparent from the end user perspective, right? So once you get these groups put together, the connector, it's actually housed and hosted here on the platform as well. So you can see all of the platforms that we support, Windows, terminal servers, Mac, Linux, Chromebook, iOS, Android. And the deployment process here across each platform is very simple. So with Windows, it's going to be an MSI. You can see I've downloaded one right here. Same thing with Windows Terminal Server. Mac, it's going to be a package, right? And for any of these, we support deployment through MDM or Windows Security Group Policy, SCCM, or even a manual install as well. So outside of deployment via agent, what we can do is, as I mentioned in the platform or the PowerPoint as well, is deploy via tunnels. So here we can support IPsec or GRE tunnels from your data center or edge. We give you a lot of visibility into the configuration process, as well as once that tunnel stood up, we can actually get a lot of information on exactly what we're seeing from that tunnel. Right, we can see traffic. Right, is it active? When it was created? And we can even pull up a terminal here to test connectivity. And so if we want to ping google.com, just as an example, we can pull up the terminal, ping, and here we can see the responses, right, to be able to test connectivity over these different tunnels. So outside of the tunnel approach, we also have WCCP. Again, that's more on the hardware side for deploying hardware. And then we have a DNS security option as well, where if you want to put in place a lightweight filter and malware defense solution, we can push this down, either manually or via DHCP settings on the network. So from the deployment side, that's really the high level. From here, I'm going to move more over to our policy application side. So here, within web security, the first thing I want to really bring to your attention is the group dropdown at the top. So everything that we can configure here within the iBoss console is configurable on a per group or per user basis. So everywhere that we click around in here is going to have this group dropdown. So to start us off on more of the proxy and web filtering features, here we have our web and SSL categories. This is where you can come in and block specific categories of the internet on a per group basis. To sort of go through the options that we have here, what we're able to do is, of course, allow or block specific categories. We can use a stealth mode, which effectively is going to highlight traffic in the log for a specific category, but not block it. So useful for monitoring specific categories or even staging policy before moving to production. The soft override, or the hand here, what this is going to do is provide users with a soft block, effectively a block page that can be clicked through. So you're able to customize actually what text the block page show. And so you can use these as opportunities to say to a user, hey, are you sure you want to be accessing this extreme content, or this website may be suspicious? Are you sure you want to continue? And the user can make their own decision there. And of course, you get reporting within the iBoss console on what that user chose. The last three options that we have here are the I, which is going to be turning on or off SSL inspection on, again, a per category basis. So broad strokes, we want to be, not decrypting health information or whatever it is, your finance information. All right, we can mark those broad categories of the internet as do not decrypt just here from this console. And again, we can get deeper into that in hitting specific IP addresses and domains and lists of domains. But just for ease of use, can be done right here from the categories console. The last two options that we have are on the administrative side. So how administration works within the iBoss platform is there is a cloud account owner who is effectively the super admin, and they're able to delegate administrator access to other users within the network. Now that super admin is able to leverage these controls to lock down a policy such that another administrator cannot change it, and also restrict a policy or a category such that the allow list or block list cannot be used to change the current policy for any website within this category. So some controls for the super admin to ensure that regulatory or mandatory policies are never changed by any other users. Moving through, of course, a lot of the web filtering is going to happen here from the categories, but we give you a lot of other features to really round out that policy and fill in the extra holes there. Moving down the list, basic protocol management. So here what we can do is detect and block maybe some of the more unfriendly VPNs or applications. All right, something somebody may use to try to get around any solution that you may have in place. And alternatively, some of the more common settings or common protocols, right? We can block FTP or ping or remote desktop access, all via toggle right here from the console. The browser and OS compliance settings. Here what we're able to do is actually restrict or create lists of allowed browsers and operating systems that users are allowed to use when browsing the internet on the network. So here, right, we can see we're blocking Firefox. But one neat control that we have here as well is if you're supporting either legacy operating systems or legacy browsers on your network, we're able to move users into different, more locked down groups when we detect that they're using something that may be end of life or that may put them at a higher risk than the next user. So a nice compliance tool here. But again, another thing that you can use to make sure that nobody's using anything that would put themselves or the network at risk. The allow list here, this is what we can use to actually poke holes in any of the policies that we implement across the platform. So, if we want to be allowing a site, all we need to do is actually add it into the list, just as I've done, and we're good to go. All right, the only other thing that we give you to help with that is actually the scrape tool. And what we can do is, spelled that wrong, is automatically scan sites for subdomains and CDNs that they need to effectively show all content to a user, right? When you're allowing something through a policy, you want to make sure that you capture all of this so that when a user goes to that site, they're not getting a skeleton of the website or they're not able to upload or view specific content, right? So we can hit the check mark and add all these to the allow list in bulk. So here we have the block list as well. Of course, when you want to be blocking specific sites, we can do that as well. And we have the scrape tool here to assist with picking up any sort of CDNs or subdomains that we may need to grab as well. The next thing that we have here is our keyword filtering. So what we're able to do is actually fully decrypt all traffic and look into any sort of browser web searches or really searches on any website that support searching and block on specific keywords, right? So see the example I have in here, bad word, right, or lightning. all you have to do is add in keywords. You can build out a custom list, or if there's one that you're currently using with a solution, you can actually import it in through the tool as well. And then we're able to actually support these pre-built lists as well if you want to just sort of set it and forget it. Continuing to move down, here we can do specific port blocking. So within the control group, we're able to create specific blocks. So if we want to block ping, we can do port 1 to port 1, right? Enable that. Now we're blocking ping for this specific group. So we support 5 entries, but there are other areas within the platform that we can actually leverage additional port-based restrictions as well. So this is really a higher level tool. And then the content MIME types, file extensions, and domain extensions. These are simple lists. Sort of click into one of them, right? If we want to limit file extensions that users can actually download on the network, right? We just build out the list here. Easy to add into it, right? We're blocking zip, PDF, ISO, and exe file downloads for this specific group. And then the last thing here at the bottom, the sleep schedule. What we can do is actually effectively turn off the internet for certain groups or for your entire network during specific hours. So if you wanted to create a sleep schedule that coincides with your network updating schedule, you could do that just to ensure that nobody's going to be online while changes are made to the network. So just a simple tool that could be used there. To stick with the sort of web filtering and proxy features, we'll move over to the CASB solution next. So here what we can do is provide you visibility into the cloud apps that are being used on your network, right? We can show you what's being used, traffic, hit count, and where blocks have been generated. And on top of that, we can actually dig a little bit deeper and show you exactly which users are using apps, right? So we can see that I'm the top user for Google on my account. We would expect that, but when you deploy this at scale, you'll actually pull up, we can see which users are using Facebook, right, or Google, and depending on what your security policy is around that, you'll be able to identify any users that may be using things that are unsanctioned. And when we identify those users or we identify those apps that we want to restrict, right, we're able to come in here and take action. So here for Azure and O365, right here we can enforce the iBoss O365 domain. We can do the same thing for Slack here. And then when we're talking about the most common social media, right? So here, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, we can take a much more granular approach than your standard allow all or block all. So we can turn off specific functionalities on sites, right? So if we want to block, pin creation and profile updates on Pinterest and block chat, games, friending, and apps on Facebook, we can do that. And this will layer on top of any other policy that you've already created within the platform as well. So for example, within the categories, if we block all social media and then utilize the allow list to allow a couple social media sites through, these controls will layer on top of those allows and blocks that we've already made. So allowing you to take a really layered and granular approach to how you restrict social media content. Down here at the bottom, we're able to enforce search engine controls, right? Enforcing safe search. As well, for Google, we can turn on or off specific functionalities, as well as restrict Google login domains the same way that we can do Microsoft or Slack. Now, this really only scratches the surface. Now, when we dig a little bit deeper into advanced CASB controls, what we can do is take a really granular approach to AWS and what users are able to do. Same thing with Box, Dropbox, WebSockets, GitLab, GitHub, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft, and the list goes on, right? We're continuously adding to this every day. And I mean, even if there's an app that we currently don't support, we allow for you to create your own custom CASB applications through the platform here, identifying specific requests or headers that can, you'll be able to block within the platform, right? So moving across the bar here, GeoIP blocking. What we're able to do here is block all file uploads and TCP connections based on GeoIP. So it's really a simple but powerful tool And what we're able to do is really just block all connectivity based on geo. So here's a simple example I have, blocking China and Russia. But you can really approach this however you like through the platform. I mean, I've seen a lot of customers take this sort of approach where we, block everything except for United States traffic. But I mean, you can, roll this back as you have specific requirements. Moving forward here, file uploads. So here what we can do is actually block all file uploads through the platform just by hitting this toggle. And now, of course, we can sort of roll back that restriction using the allow list or any of the custom exceptions we're able to employ within the platform. But what this will allow you to do is take more of a zero trust approach with what users are able to upload on the internet, right? So in hitting this check mark, anybody that doesn't have additional privilege with another policy won't be able to upload anything anywhere, right? And of course, we have more specific toggles for some of the more popular file sharing sites. In the YouTube manager here, what we're able to do is enforce a safe search for YouTube, right? Blocking all explicit content. Then we can remove YouTube comments, block HD video playback if you want to conserve bandwidth, especially on premise. And then we can enable a YouTube channel redirect. So if a company has their own YouTube channel, what we can do is put in the channel ID, and then whenever a user on their network actually accesses YouTube, instead of landing on the homepage, it'll land them on the company's YouTube channel, which is a neat feature. And the last thing that we have here in the CASB features is the Microsoft CAS integration. So what you can do is actually integrate your CAS deployment into your iBoss deployment to create a unified policy application front, right? And so if there are any devices or users that are outside the scope of CAS that are within the scope of iBoss, right, we can actually extend the reach of that CAS deployment that you have. And on top of that, create this unified platform so that you can view both your iBoss policies and logs, as well as your Microsoft information as well. So the last thing with regard to CASB that I do want to bring up is actually our API CASB tool. And what we can do here is actually look into any Azure box or Google, cloud file share that you have, and be able to walk through all of that data at rest and look for any sort of malicious files or DLP hits, so you can gain visibility into exactly what you're storing in the cloud. Right, and so sort of save this feature for last because where iBoss sits with regard to your network is really in between your users, your networks, and the internet, and looking at all those north-south connections. Right, this is really one of our only features that focuses on that data at rest. But being a cloud-native company, we believe it's important to have visibility into those cloud, those cloud storage containers here, just so you can understand what you're housing there and be able to tag files for DLP or get rid of anything that is deemed to be malicious. So outside of the sort of proxy functionality, we can actually jump back over and look at the malware defense side of things. So here we have a full-scale IPS and IDS engine that you can turn on. It's snort based. So if we jump in here, we can actually look at all the rules that we pull in. You can come in, you can edit these rules, you can upload your own, enable email alerts, right? And all of these rules are actually pulled in from Cisco Talos, as well as emerging threats from Proofpoint. And those subscriptions are entirely managed by iBoss, right? It's not something that our customers have to worry about. It's not something our customers, have to keep up or pay for with Cisco or Proofpoint, right? We manage that on the iBoss side, and customers are able to come in, enable these integrations, as well as change when we look for updates to make sure that that matches with their update schedule. On the malware defense engine side, we have our streaming malware and reputation defense engine, as well as our advanced malware analysis defense engine. So what the streaming engine is going to do is that's going to protect your users as they're actively browsing, right? We're going to make sure that they're not clicking on any malicious links, connecting to any sites that are known malicious for any reason. And then the advanced malware analysis defense engine, what this is going to do is actually unpack and scan all those files that we see, as users are uploading and downloading things on the internet. So, between these two engines, we take a best in breed approach. So we pull in over 60 different malware engines and feeds that we then, leverage for all traffic and all uploads and downloads. So if any one of those engines reports a positive, we're going to block that communication or block that download and give you reporting on it. Right. And if you want to add extra layers to this defense as well, we can integrate with the Google Safe Browsing database. So, I mean, if you're browsing on Chrome, which I'm doing now, you're under the Google database protection. But if you're using anything third party, right, Firefox or Edge, it doesn't include that protection. So what we're able to do is actually leverage Google's API to pull in that database and apply that to your users across all browsers. The last thing that we have here on the malware protection side is actually high risk heuristic based blocking. So what we can do is utilize risk scores to either allow or block sites for your users. And the engine is built out by iBoss, and it essentially looks at the contents of each URL and applies a score based on each segment, right? So when you look at a .ru domain, that would warrant a high score, whereas a .com domain would warrant a lower score. And you can configure exactly what constitutes a low, medium, or high score, and then determine exactly where you want to cut off users' access and block at. The last thing that we have here is our Malware Sandboxing tool. And what this is able to do is actually run a file or a website through all of our engines as if a user was accessing it inline, right? So it's really one of the most common forms of cyber attack actually happens offline, right? I'm sure you've heard of the situation or the example where a malicious actor will, walk through a company's parking lot and drop a few USB sticks, right? And of course, curiosity killed the cat. One of those employees that walks out after work is going to see one of those USB sticks, think it's interesting, wonder whose it is, go home, plug it into their computer, and then all of a sudden you got a virus, right? And so as that happens, and as you identify files on your network that you've never seen before, that you are really unsure of, you can upload them here, and we'll actually give you a full scale either report on the URL or report on the file that tells you exactly what it is. Right. So this is a test report I ran actually on our Windows installer. So we can see from the sandboxing side of things, behaviorally, it's a Microsoft Windows installer, which is what we'd expect. And then we can actually see all of the antivirus scans that we ran on this file as well. Right. So we've got 60. And again, it's that best in breed approach. So if any one of those engines mark this file as suspicious or malicious, it would have given you a malware result. And if a user were to be downloading this inline, it would have blocked that. And one of the important things about this whole engine, right, being built and housed in the cloud, is that when we make blocks and when we intercept files, they're not even close to your network edge, right? Whereas a legacy solution, that file is getting stopped at the edge or at that firewall, and it's already got that one leg in. So we're sort of separating all of that malware defense and that features from your network entirely, which is a really nice to have feature at the end of the day. And so, the last really major feature that we can apply here within the platform is our data loss prevention engine. So here what we're able to do is, create rules to actually filter out content, either outbound, inbound, or both, based on specific signatures. All right, and we can get really targeted with these rules as well. You can target, network sources, users, groups, target destinations on the internet. And then within the search criteria, we have broad strokes, engines that will look for credit card numbers or Stripe data. But you can actually create your own DLP signatures here as well to filter for specific information and effectively block whenever a user tries to upload something sensitive. It's important to note as well that we can actually integrate with Microsoft labels here as well. So, if you already have a naming scheme for all of your O365 documents, we're able to pick up on that and be able to block based on any tags that you don't want anybody uploading to the internet. So a very neat integration we have there as well. So of course, this is a simple rule example. You can also create complex rules, right, where we target, a specific signature, a specific destination on the internet, and even a specific group that we put under that rule. So you have the ability to create, both those broad strokes rules as well as some very, under the hood granular controls for your users. So I know we have just under 10 minutes left, so I want to show you really what things look like from a reporting standpoint as well. So we jump over to reporting analytics and we look at, our logs here. We have a real-time log feature. We can see that I'm actually connected to the cloud right now. There's our hop-in URL. And so, through this whole presentation, I've been connected to the cloud within this control group the whole time, right? And so some of those policies that we enabled, I'm actually under right now. I can show you what some of those hits would look like. So I believe we had gambling blocks. So if we go to a poker.com, we actually end up with this block page. So, very simple, very easy from an end user perspective. And here, I'm able to request an exception, but you can actually turn this off on a per user basis. Really easy and simple and informative, honestly, from the end user perspective as well. And then if we come back here, we can actually see this block came through the log in real time as I was browsing out through the internet. So really smooth and really easy to use from the logging side. And of course, outside of the real-time feature, right, we have the event log here as well, where we can actually sort and search through everything that has come through the platform in real time, right? And what's important to note is that we're able to actually capture all ports and protocols through the platform as well. So we can even look for specific traffic related to RDP. If we open this up, we can see, here's me, and then I'm connecting to this specific RDP instance, which is actually within my Google tenant, and I'm actually connecting through a private access policy, right? So I'm not to dig too deep into that, but again, that's our VPN replacement tool. And if you want to look at it, right, in private access, we can see there's that Google RDP access. And if we open it up, there's that specific domain that we gave access to. So we're sort of coming up onto time here. So I do want to leave just about 5 minutes here to see if anybody has any specific questions. If there's anything that people want me to dig a little bit deeper into, or if there's anything that folks would like me to follow up with them on. So please feel free to drop anything into the chat or the Q&A sections, and I'll be here to answer.